Today's episode was amazing and surely brought a tear to your eye too, but as always, there are things that weren't adapted. Things like Subaru realizing that he actually could have arrived in Lugunica hundreds of years ago instead of episode 1 let me think, of how the novel explains and complements much better the thoughts of Subaru have upon seeing Ren, and how all of this leads into that scene with Subaru and the strange light. This and many more details in today's video. Welcome to all the good content from episode 13 of season 4 of ReZero.
Overall, the first scene where they discuss how Reed's book would help them defeat him had many changes. Not only skipped dialogues, but also the order of appearance of the dialogues seen in the anime. For example, the first line Betty says right at the start of the episode was supposed to come at the end, but since the anime has its own pacing, it was put at the beginning. Either way, I don't want to waste time specifying the exact order of the dialogues, so I will tell you what was cut without any specific order during this section. A few compliments that the amnesiac Subaru gives Emilia were skipped. Emilia really blushes at his comments, but the cutest part is when the amnesiac Subaru uses a speech quirk similar to the original. You probably remember that when Emilia says an uncommon word, Subaru always mentions that people don't say that nowadays. And when the amnesiac Subaru repeated that habit unconsciously today, Emilia and Betty got really excited. The novel also makes it clearer that if Subaru was convinced Reed had died and revived recently, it is because in the previous loop he saw him trying to leave the tower shortly after appearing. He concludes that if he had been waiting for 400 years, he would have left a long time ago. Additionally, the amnesiac Subaru in this part considers the brief theory that maybe he lost his memories from reading too many books of the dead. Remember that he appeared with no memory under a pile of books. Because of this, he thinks that if they are going to read Reed's book, he should do it so they don't run the risk of another party member losing their memories. But soon he realizes that he doesn't want to lose his memories again either, since he truly values his allies for all the things they have recently gone through, especially because of the last failed loop. After that, another observation happens that I feel many overlook. Remember that the library only lets you read the books of people you know? But in that library are the books of everyone in the world, so looking for a specific book is a monumental task, and it is because of how unlikely this is that they are surprised that Subaru apparently found several important books before losing his memories. Finally, it is mentioned how Subaru plans to have finding Elsa's book as a side mission in order to earn Meili's trust. To this, the little girl just says that he is an evil person, and that it seems Petra has terrible taste in men. Later, when they go up the stairs, some interesting anecdotes about Reed and the world's lore are shared, but the anime cut them. When Subaru hears that the group from 400 years ago sealed the witch, and Shaula was referring to him as one of those figures, Subaru says something very curious. He says that in that case he must be over 100 years old, and that it seems more time passed between being teleported from the convenience store and the moment he woke up in season 4. Obviously, this is just a silly comment and he doesn't remember waking up in the first chapter of season 1, but what if it isn't, and Tape already spoiled something from the ending of the story? Who knows? Then the novel tells us about some of Reed's feats that were not mentioned in the anime. It is said how he cut down 100 dragons, how he had a record of 6,000 victories in a coliseum, and there was also a legend that he beat the Oni god in a drinking contest. If you don't know who the Oni god is, it would basically be the entity that Rem and Ram's race worshipped. While Julius acknowledges that those stories might be exaggerated, he confirms there is no record of any defeats in life on Reed's part, so Subaru seriously considers that they are facing an unbeatable enemy. Before continuing, I am genuinely glad that the scene where Subaru talks alone with Julius was kept. The community's trusted leaker had posted what appeared in the preview for this episode, and since he never made reference to this scene, I thought it wouldn't be included. In itself, there were several cut dialogues between the guys, but it can all be boiled down to how much they appreciate each other. Some things I consider important are how the amnesiac Subaru says that now that he has lost his memories, he will take it as an opportunity to do the things the original Subaru couldn't do. Things like being more honest with his thoughts and taking full advantage of the trust the original Subaru built in his relationships with others. It is also made much clearer that the things Subaru believed about Julius were completely true to him and not just empty words. If the amnesiac Subaru was able to tell Julius that he is overflowing with courage, it wasn't just to sweet-talk him, but rather he said it because he remembered how in the last loop, Julius decided to face Reed, even knowing how messed up the situation was. So in this part, he just made sure to fuel his competitive spirit. Honestly, it's hard for me to put into words the other things Subaru said to cheer him up, but he did such a good job that even Julius suspected Subaru might have lied about losing his memories, and was saying all that just to have an excuse to cheer him up like this. To which Subaru scolds him because he says that would mean lying to Emilia. By far the most interesting thing about this scene is how it starts and ends. It starts with the words, "That is that, this is this." In fact, in the web novel format, that is the title of the chapter. To start telling Julius the important things, Subaru opens with those words, and the ever-refined Julius, when he finished thanking Subaru for the words of encouragement, closes the conversation with that exact same line, as if telling Subaru that he perfectly understood everything he wanted to communicate to him. I know this might not seem like a big deal, but those kinds of details in the narration are always nice, and I want to add something that happened before this. Before Julius and Subaru were left alone, Ram tells Subaru that he must hurry to the library or someone else in the group will read something and lose their memory, and Eridna, sensing the tense moment between the two guys, asks Subaru to please not be too harsh with the words he tells Julius. But let us continue. Although the anime later shows us that the group found Reed's book, in reality Julius and Subaru had another brief playful moment. It is said that while Subaru was reflecting on whether his words really reached Julius, he wondered if he should have chosen a better phrase than just, "That is that, this is this." But Julius calmed him down by saying that those words were fine, and that, in fact, it was something his self with memories would also say. This causes a bit of conflict for Subaru, and he feels like he is having an identity crisis, to which Julius tells him that he will give him some advice to overcome that crisis, because he also went through it recently, referencing the crisis he had after being disgracefully defeated by Reed. Let us remember that during that crisis, Julius began saying that now that he had nothing left and could not even trust his talent with the sword, then what did he have left? Afterward, when Subaru was expecting an insightful reflection resulting from Julius's growth after that crisis, Julius just teased him by repeating the phrase, "That is that, this is this." Honestly, this moment is very interesting because the fact that they joke around like that is further proof that they still get along well, despite the protagonist's memory loss. And not only that, but seeing Subaru feel bad because he is told he resembles the original Natsuki Subaru really gives you something to think about. Sure, we know the original Subaru was a good person, but right now the amnesiac Subaru does not think that, and that is because he believes the original Subaru killed Meili and took over his body to do bad things, which is why he gets a bit of an identity crisis when they tell him he is similar to his previous self. As I said, this is important because after the previous loop, Subaru decided to save everyone, but he still does not include his previous self on the list of people to save, at least not until the end of the episode. Then, as soon as Meili finds the book, Subaru thanks her and even says that makes up for the fact that she tried to kill him. Yeah, a pretty awful comparison, honestly. Although the anime skips to the part where Subaru says he will be the one to read Reed's book, in the novel there is still a brief chat about who should do it. I understand why they removed the conversation, and that is because there Eridna gave her theory on how Subaru lost part of his memories the night before. However, we know that in this loop Subaru lied, saying he only lost a part of his memories, and since everyone starts formulating theories based on a false premise, I kind of understand why they cut it. If you are wondering what they were saying, they said things like how, depending on the number of books you read, you will start losing your memories or stuff like that. But in the end it does not matter, because Subaru knows those theories are wrong, since he withheld information and did not let them know that he actually lost all his memories. So it is completely normal that the anime skipped this part and just left us with the conclusion of Subaru offering to read the book. Oh right, it is also mentioned that while Subaru was thinking about the lie he told regarding his memories, he stares at Meili because he remembered what the process of reading her Book of the Dead was like, but Meili thinks Subaru was planning to make her read the book as a form of punishment. But moving on with the video, before Subaru dives into the book, some interesting dialogues are skipped, like Amelia and Betty saying that even though he has lost his memory, he still has that attitude where once he sets his mind on something, nobody can stop him, and there is also a line from Ram saying she will not forgive him if he forgets the promise he made to her when they went to fetch water. And so he would plunge into the book. In itself, not much dialogue was skipped between Rui and Subaru's talk. It was mostly certain thoughts of Subaru that were omitted, like how he was amazed by the fact that upon reading this book, his consciousness did not momentarily merge with the life of the book's owner, thinking that because he found himself with his physical body inside this world. Then, upon seeing Rui, Subaru acknowledges that his survival instincts are screaming at him to be careful, but he has to be there to move forward. Also, an interesting moment in this part is when Rui brings up the possibility that he might already have a younger sibling from his parents. In the novel, Subaru does not dismiss the idea, but the most interesting thing is that he says his parents will never stop looking for him, which is why at this moment, he wishes with all his heart that his life in this new world was the result of reincarnation, because if not, his family would definitely still be waiting for him. As an extra detail, I remember that before Aldebaran's origin was revealed, a certain part of the fandom claimed that the similarities between Aldebaran and Subaru were due to Aldebaran being Subaru's younger brother who was also teleported. Those were the days. Among other cut parts from Rui and Subaru's dialogue, they talk a bit about the cult in detail, where she tells Subaru how the witches and archbishops are the same thing just with different names, but they do not really mention anything too interesting, since they ultimately conclude that, because he lost his memories, there is not much point in talking about it. Completely normal for the anime to skip it. Rui also mentions that she is the only resident of the place, which I feel is something that should not have been omitted, but let us keep going. Another cut that had to happen was the mention of Ode Laguna. Ode Laguna is, so to speak, the entity that regulates things in the world of ReZero. Although saying it is an entity implies that it has a consciousness, it is really more like the operating system of this isekai universe. It is this entity that decides the amount of ode people have. It also decides who receives divine protections and stuff like that. Why is the mention of this system important? Because right now they are precisely in that place, in the cradle of the place that controls the world. Only then does Subaru finally ask her if she was the one who stole his memories. Another thing that was skipped around here is Rui talking a bit more about the night Subaru lost his memories, where she mentions that the way Subaru arrived the last time was different. What does she mean by Subaru arriving in a different way? Did the original Subaru not arrive by reading Reed's book as well? Well, that is answered later, but for now anime-only viewers will have to wait. Another thing that I feel was lost was the reason why Subaru gets aggressive toward Rui. While in the anime it is shown that the reason for his aggression is because she compared carnal desire to hunger while looking at him. In the novel he actually does it because Rui was about to tell him, "I love you," and that brought back memories of when he saw the witch in the previous loop. It is also mentioned in the novel that the reason Subaru lost the strength in his grip was because he remembered all his friends, unlike the anime where he stops as soon as Rui tells him that if the original Subaru returns, he will disappear. Although you can deduce what I will say next just from seeing how the amnesiac Subaru starts doubting upon learning that he will disappear if the previous Subaru returns, the novel makes it much clearer that Subaru had already prepared himself to die if necessary to bring back the previous Subaru, but simply, at this moment, he didn't feel quite ready for that. The situation even gets a bit more twisted when Rui rubs in his face that by having devoured the previous Subaru, she was the one who ended up creating the amnesiac Subaru, and that means he is her child. Yeah, the novel got kind of weird in this part. Other important things that were left out were that, in part, Subaru's hesitation at this moment was because while trying to end Rui's life, he remembered that the time Meili died the girl was in the exact same position, which brought back bad memories and kind of snapped him out of the trance a bit. The story doesn't state it outright, of course, but it seems that remembering that scene made him doubt Rui's intentions even more. After all, it seems Subaru deduced that she was setting a trap for him. After this, Subaru's doubts regarding what to decide would continue. He knows that if the original Subaru returns, he will disappear for good, since the death he will experience will be completely different from the others, and he acknowledges that he doesn't want to lose what he has built up until now with his friends. But this is where that other important cut element comes in. As the amnesiac Subaru thought more and more of the original Subaru as an entity separate from himself, it is said that his body starts cracking, symbolizing in this way that he was already starting to see the original Natsuki Subaru as a distinct entity from him, and the more he accepted this idea, the more his body cracked. But before this thought process concludes, Rem would appear. Honestly, Rem's scene was adapted in its entirety. Believe me when I say nothing was cut. What was skipped and was unavoidable were the thoughts Subaru had at each of Rem's words. They are mostly thoughts that you can deduce, but since I know you want the full detail, I will play the novel excerpt for you to complement your perspective on the situation. Remember that at this moment Subaru's body was cracking. I say this because, as you will see, the novel makes reference to that.
The harsh order to get up struck down and crushed Natsuki Subaru, who was already beginning to break apart. Without mercy or hesitation, that shout shattered him into pieces and made the cracks spread faster, digging like sharp claws directly into his exposed heart. The blue-haired girl raised her voice again and again, angrily demanding that he stand up, as she shouted non-stop at the kneeling young man who was holding the little girl in place. His shocked face continued to crack. Her angry voice kept hitting his chest without holding anything back. Subaru wondered why she was throwing such demands at him, while he was suffering through such deep and painful sadness that threatened to break his mind. He felt that it was not normal to face such terrible choices one after another without any time to prepare. After leaving his cries behind and barely reaching a conclusion, he wondered if that effort had not been enough. However, the girl in front of him refused to let Subaru's complaints, stubbornness, or fear of losing someone weaken his spirit. With a firm refusal, she continued to demand more from him, refusing to accept his surrender and not forgiving him for making a decision born from the breaking of his soul. Her demand for him to stand up did not stop, hurting him while he was in the middle of his pain. Subaru tried to understand who this girl really was and where in his memories she belonged. He had no memory of ever speaking with her. Their connection was nothing more than a simple image, something that hardly gave him a reason to keep standing. Even so, a burning fire and an unexplained warmth rose from deep inside his chest. Her command ended with a tearful scream as she ordered him to stand, calling him the hero of Rem. Those words touched Subaru's heart, making him tremble at the irony and strange timing of the situation. The cracks spread faster until they literally broke the shell of the old Natsuki Subaru, releasing something slightly different from what had been trapped inside moments before. Answering the girl's wish, Subaru crushed the fear that controlled him and stood up. Then the girl told him that, now that he had stood up, he had to move forward and save everything. Confused by such a vague order, Subaru asked what she meant. She explained that saving everything meant saving absolutely everyone. Himself, every other person, and even the stranger closest to him. Subaru doubted that someone as incomplete as him could achieve something so impossible. He could not even save himself or protect the memories and feelings that were precious to him. He wondered why she had placed so much faith in him. The girl assured him that he could do it because he was the hero of Rem. That strong declaration of affection suddenly found its place inside him, completely cleaning away the dark and dirty feeling that had filled his insides. It became another reason for him to refuse to give his place back to the old Natsuki Subaru. The purified substance did not simply grow, it began to shine brightly, changed its shape, and started beating strongly at the deepest core of his being. Even after losing everything and leaving everything behind, Subaru still wished to have everything, without letting go of anything or giving up his own existence. Answering that greedy and cowardly greed, that uncertain factor finally began to grow and take shape, making his wishes real and becoming one with him as Subaru called upon the power of Corleonis. The seed that had once had no direction finally bloomed inside him, and as his body stood completely firm, that important moment was blessed by nothing but the smile of the blue-haired girl.
Something that I personally would have liked to see kept was Subaru saying, "Come to me, Corleonis." Although the novel already makes it clear to you that Subaru awakened the authority of greed in this part, the anime doesn't say it explicitly yet, but after seeing the sequence of everything the amnesiac Subaru has gone through, it all makes sense. Let's recap quickly. At first, the amnesiac Subaru only wanted to save himself. Then after going through the loops and seeing that his friends are good people, he included them on the list of people to save as well. But since he saw that his other version killed Mei Li in a failed loop, he still doesn't have a good opinion of his previous self, which is why he hesitates to include him on the list of people to save. That is why this sequence with Rem and Rui was necessary, where he decides that he will be greedy and will also save the original Natsuki Subaru. This greed of wanting to save everything and everyone is what awakens the greed witch factor. And how did Subaru get the factor that belonged to Regulus? Because we saw that he killed him in the previous season. And if you remember the Shadow Garden scene that represents Subaru's inner self, Regulus appeared there alongside Petaljuice, symbolizing in this way that both are now part of him. But the episode doesn't end here. When Rem leaves and the amnesiac Subaru has his final talk with Rui, the novel clarifies for us the thoughts of the protagonist, who says that even though his friends told him he was still the same even without memories, he did not accept that and took those comparisons as a curse he had to carry. But now he just thinks that there is no need to set himself apart from the other Subaru. Another omitted detail that helped give a bit more personality to Rui was the fact that when talking to Subaru, she admitted being sick of eating lives and that she was already full. Subaru notices this contradiction in how, despite being gluttony, she admitted feeling satisfied. Here the novel would mention the alias of the other gluttony siblings so that we understand what Rui was referring to. But since the anime skipped it, it makes sense that they took all of this out because it would be confusing. Basically, Rui at this moment was referencing how each member of Gluttony views food. Roy eats as much as he can, Lei only eats exquisite dishes, and Rui only wants to eat a dish tailored to her tastes. Another thing that was lost was a great response Subaru gave to Rui. You see, a moment comes where Rui starts explaining to Subaru how, even though she devoured multiple lives, she doesn't get what she wants, and she says it as if expecting Subaru to understand her, to which he tells her something along the lines of not understanding why she doesn't feel regret for being a piece of trash. Another cut detail that also sounded a bit creepy was when Rui mentions the names of all the people Subaru had a bond with, and how she looks forward to deceiving them. Then, before Subaru tells her some words that I really like because he also told them to Julius. In the novel, he doesn't just tell her that he won't give her anything, but even says that he wishes her the worst death in the world, all while making a hand gesture, the one where he slits his throat. Afterward, I really love how the final answer Subaru gives her is the exact same line he told Julius to cheer him up, only now he says it to Rui. He says it because, even though he knows he might disappear after recovering his memories, he will try to find a way to keep existing despite everything. To wrap up this part, although the anime makes it clear that Rui's brothers were already coming, in the novel she clarifies that she had actually already called them the night before, which is why they were already close. One last final addition is that before leaving this dimension, Subaru hesitates for a moment, not because he will miss Rui, but because he will miss Rem, and it is also said that the crack appeared because it responded to Subaru's thought, and not to Rui as it seems to be in the anime. And to wrap things up, those parts of Subaru's companions responding to the threats are actually an anime original edition. In the novel, we only find out about that much later, and they don't even give details. But the anime took the liberty of showing us what that moment was like. So thank you to the anime production team. Oh right, that final scene of Rui grieving shouldn't actually happen now, since it is a scene that would only be explained later on. But it seems the anime decided it was better to include it now. Honestly, this part has me a bit confused, since they only adapted a small part of Rui's life. I don't know if they adapted so little, because they will adapt the rest of her life later, to better explain why she did what she did. So for now, I don't want to dig too deep into this for fear of spoiling anyone. I hope you understand. Let's move on to the author's tweets. First, the author mentions how Emilia gets excited every time the amnesiac Subaru uses the same phrases as the original Subaru, just as I said at the beginning of my video. Second, the author references the recurring phrase from today's episode. Third, the author emphasizes the way the archbishops speak and how they alternate between the pronouns I and we. Fourth, the author confirms that indeed no other sibling has been born into the Natsuki family. Fifth, the author comments that the scene where Rui hurts herself is due to the influence of Subaru's memories. Remember that Subaru also had that bad habit, and it was revealed by Beatrice in a failed loop. Sixth, the author clarifies something that not even I noticed. The reason Rui couldn't see Rem was because she discarded the memories associated with her. Seventh, the author comments that this episode was one of the 2 episodes he wanted to write the most when he started Arc 6, unlike the episode where Subaru saves Betty, which he planned since the very beginning of ReZero. Eighth and last, the author refers to how Rui let go of one memory in particular, this in relation to Rem's memory, and if she did it, it was because having that memory inside her made her feel like she couldn't hurt Subaru. That is all for the tweets. Let's head over to the break time. Usually I would add extra information about the break time, but this break time is based on a series of short stories that I have already covered on this channel. So for now, I will only include the first part of the story it was based on, and it went like this. While Subaru is busy dying left and right thanks to Season 4, things aren't exactly easy for Felt. After all, she's guarding a person who poses a threat to the entire nation, Sirius. This is revealed in a novel that is not only little known, but that the author actually had to rewrite 5 years after publishing it. And you're in luck, because the version I'm about to tell you is the updated one. The story kicks off by narrating how the carriage carrying the candidate Reinhard and Sirius is ambushed by some bandits. The looters had no idea they were messing with the worst possible target, but seeing a lone carriage traveling by itself, they figured it would be an easy heist. Felt asked her driver not to go overboard with the force. That driver was none other than Reinhard, who, with his usual calmness, introduced himself to the terrified assailants before neutralizing them with a single devastating blow. While this was going down, Felt sighed over this being the 6th attack they'd suffered. She thinks it's extremely suspicious that not only have they been attacked multiple times by bandits, but the bridge connecting their routes was also wiped out by a flash flood. And as if that weren't enough, several maybeasts that aren't even native to the area kept attacking the carriage. Then a voice interrupted her. It was Sirius, who was immobilized with bandages and chains. With her twisted tone, the monster told Felt that her gloomy expression was ruining how adorable she looked. Felt demanded she stop calling her adorable, since she hated those kinds of compliments. Sirius, cackling and rattling her restraints, interpreted the rejection as a sign that Felt actually wanted to get along with her. The candidate complained about volunteering to escort such a freak to the capital, to which Sirius sarcastically suggested that she just hand the job over to someone else then. Felt shot down the idea while thinking to herself that the best way to handle this job was with the smallest amount of people possible, and specifically people who wouldn't be affected by the Archbishop's power. Later, Felt brought up the constant attacks they'd been suffering. Sirius looked down with a fake melancholy and claimed it happened because she is a woman who attracts misfortune. She even mentions that her hometown was destroyed in a witch hunt and she was the only survivor. The Archbishop finished by saying that everything she did was because of the misery the world had brought upon her, justifying herself by saying it was inevitable. Sick and tired of listening to her wallow in her own victim complex, Felt told her to shut up. She made it crystal clear that she had zero sympathy for her excuses, bringing up the example of a certain half-elf girl who, despite being in the exact same circumstances, doesn't use her misfortunes as an excuse when dealing with others. Felt concluded that Sirius was nothing more than a crazy coward using her weakness as a shield. It's said that at the mere mention of the half-elf, Sirius gets consumed by such a deep, profound hatred that she starts insulting the girl in a way that actually scares Felt. But right at that moment, Reinhardt arrived, letting her know he had already taken care of the situation. Felt was surprised when she realized just how relieved she felt seeing her knight come back, and while they were figuring out what to do with the bandits, Sirius starts singing, much to Felt's annoyance. Though at the very least, she preferred having that lunatic sing rather than try to make conversation. Unfortunately, the journey would only continue to be a hassle because they still had 10 more days to go. But that's a story you don't know yet. If you want to see the full series on this channel, you can check out the shorts I have, and you will find it there. That would be all for now. I really liked the episode, and I'm glad it got a great rating on the series ranking charts. Hopefully the score stays up, and sorry for the delay with the video, while I'm not sick anymore. For the past few weeks, I have picked up the habit of working out, and in the end, that cuts down a bit on the hours I can dedicate to this. But I trust you understand that all of this is for my health. I leave you my Instagram in case you want to follow me. I usually upload clips of my day-to-day life, so if you want to see a bit of that, I invite you to give me a follow. And remember that soon I will upload a 1-hour video about the most beautiful novel of Heinkel Astria. For now, I leave you the cut content from the previous episode, in case you're interested in watching it. But before I go, what did you think of today's episode?